Hello, and welcome back. Today I'm gonna talk about the Savoy Cocktail Book. This book was originally created by the head bartender of the American bar at the Savoy Hotel. And that person is Harry Craddock. This book is dedicated to you. I like that this includes a modernized illustration of Jerry Thomas making his signature blue blazer. It's a really nice nod to what came before. It's funny to say modern. This is obviously a reprint, but this would have been released in, I want to say 1930. And Jerry Thomas would have been publishing 40, 50 years earlier. So, relatively modern. Yes, I think I'll go ahead and read this little bit first. A few hints for the young mixer. Number 1. Ice is nearly always an absolute essential for any cocktail. Number 2. Never use the same ice twice. Number 3. Remember that the ingredients mix better in a shaker rather larger than is necessary to contain them. Number 4. Shake the shaker as hard as you can. Don't just rock it. You are trying to wake it up, not send it to sleep. Number 5. If possible, ice your glasses before using them. And lastly, drink your cocktail as soon as possible. Harry Craddock was once asked what was the best way to drink a cocktail. Quickly, replied that great man, while it's laughing at you. Now, I think this is a great little forward here. Actually, let's see if we can find who wrote this again. It is 1930. Completely skipped this page, actually. Quite like this illustration. If all be true that I do think, there are 5 reasons why men drink: good wine, a friend, or being dry, or lest we should be by and by, or any other reason why. Henry Aldrich, a late 17th century writer. Curiouser and curiouser. I've never thought about this before. I always liked these little tips, but they don't seem to be attributed to anyone. The cocktails are nearly 100 years old. The illustrations are by Gilbert Rumbold. And yet, being in the main a complete compendium of the cocktails, rickeys, daisies, slings, shrubs, smashes, fizzes, juleps, cobblers, fixes, and other drinks, known and vastly appreciated in this year of grace 1930, with sundry notes of amusement and interest concerning them, together with subtle observations upon wines and their special occasions, bring in the particular and elucidation of the manners and customs of people of quality in a period of some equality. Well, at least we came back to this page, which I think was worth it. But I'm sorry to whoever wrote this forward. There's a preface and a forward that refers to Harry Craddock in the third person, unless this was written by him and he was just that. Unless he was just really sure of himself, just calling himself a great man. I will say I do agree with a lot of these hints, tips. I think sometimes nowadays, especially in a dive bar, sometimes you get an ice dump from the mixing tins, which is definitely a way to reduce costs. Especially if you're an establishment that has very, very thin margins to work with, like most dive bars are due to their low prices compared with the increasing prices of liquor. But generally speaking, I do like these hints, though. Ice is absolutely essential. Whatever cocktail you're making, ice is always an ingredient. Number 2 has not using the same ice twice. I think you see that in a lot of dive bars. Sometimes you'll just have them dump out the ice from the shaker tin, which is a different situation. These are bars that have the thinnest margins because their drinks are quite cheap, but the cost of alcohol keeps going up even at wholesale distributor prices, so they can cut corners, or not cut corners, but save costs by using less ice, then that's a really easy way to get it. And yes, number 3, you should definitely have space to work with. Sometimes I'll use my big Boston shaker, and depending on what goes into the drink, I think I can maybe get 3 cocktails out of that, but generally speaking, you never want to do more than 2 servings. Because another important ingredient in a cocktail is air. And yes, wake up your drinks, shake it hard. And yeah, you can chill your glasses. You can either put it in the fridge, depending on your glassware, you can put it in your freezer, but I don't recommend it unless you are going to use that glass in the next. I wouldn't recommend it unless you are going to use that glass in the next 20 minutes or so. Also, if you have very thin, nice crystalware, I wouldn't do that at all. I would say use the fridge or fill it with a little water and a little ice. And keep your drink colder for longer, which is why prevailing advice to this day is to drink a cocktail quickly. It's just going to get worse the warmer it gets. And that is also why when you get served a cocktail up in stemware, you should really hold it by the stem if possible, if you're able to, just because it's going to affect the temperature of your drink. Because once a drink is in stemware, there's no ice in the drink coming to you. So yes, the little etymology coming from cocktail to cocktail. It's a little story about a king. Yes. King Axolotl VIII of Mexico. If I'm mispronouncing that, feel free to let me know in the comments. So yes, we have a lot of information in the beginning, but most of the book is just cocktails. You get a little bit more reference in the back, but as you'll see here, we're generally just dealing with cocktails. Like I do love all of these illustrations. You do get little notes here and there. This Bobby Burns cocktail is one of the very best whiskey cocktails. A very fast mover on St. Andrew's Day. With this book, you're getting a 1930s, this came out in 1930, so you're getting a 1920s glimpse into British and European cocktail culture, which has a lot of overlap with America, but they have their own distinctive style. Yes, I do love all of these little illustrations. makes for a fun experience. The classics. The Clover Club, which I believe was brought back by, I want to say Julie or Julia. Part of that early 2000s New York cocktail renaissance club. And she's a big deal. Sometimes your brain gets full of so many names that you can't find the ones you need when you need them. Now, to go with a classic, and probably the drink that Harry Craddock is most famously credited with making, and that is the Corpse Reviver, number 2. It says here 4 of these taken in swift succession will unrevive the corpse again. So take this drink with caution, I should say. There's many corpse revivers now. You have the original corpse reviver, obviously, and then, which is to be taken before 11 a.m. or whenever steam and energy are needed. And then you have Harry Craddock's number 2. Eventually we get number blue that uses blue curacao. And I believe there's maybe several versions of the Corpse Reviver number 2. And then there are other numbers and versions with tequila and all sorts of things. It's really, there's a lot of ways to get a hair of the dog situation with a Corpse Reviver. As you might notice, some of these have more specific measurements. Like this includes a measure for wine glass. Now at this time, wine glasses were much, much smaller, and serving sizes were much smaller. So I believe a full wine glass at this time, at least in America, I believe is about 2 ounces. I'm not sure how well that would translate to the British concept of shots and so on. If you get other old cocktail books, you might see these old-fashioned terms like pony and jigger and all of these kind of dated ways of measuring things. But the thing I actually really love about this Savoy Cocktail Book is that, by and large, the recipes are written in parts. It's written in such a way that you can just kind of get up and go. You just have to know the ratio of the ingredients, not the specific measurement. You can get more specific if you need a teaspoonful of something, or a dash of bitters or something like that. But yes, Harry leaves America during Prohibition to continue his craft. I like this little inset. Cocktails a la mode, a cocktail party in the very best manner of the period. And you can see just, people in the 20s and 30s, just like us. They just want to have drinks poolside and have a good time. The notes are definitely my favorite part. In French 75 has the note, hits with remarkable precision. Yes. I know that Harry ended up creating a bartenders guild in the UK. I am not sure if it is still operational. And I think he was a co-founder. I forget who else was involved off the top of my head, but oh wow. I'd love to see it. Even back then, they have some non-alcoholic cocktails. So if anyone wants to tell you that spirit-free cocktails, non-alcoholic cocktails, mocktails, whatever you want to call them, aren't a part of the classic canon, they're wrong. So we have a couple of Clayton's specials. Clayton's, I don't know if I'll get demonetized if I say that, actually. It means something. It's different in British colloquialisms, but we have a temperance cocktail, which is sirop de citron, which basically be like a lemon syrup, and then you mix it. It's essentially syrups and juices with tonic water, although we do have a flip here, or not a flip, because it's just the yolk of an egg, but I believe Parsons' special cocktail here might qualify as a breakfast for the time period. People weren't eating that much, so I imagine that would have been quite popular. But yeah. Oh yes, I almost missed this little bit. This is the end of the cocktails, and then you have some batch cocktail recipes. Cover your basics. You got your gin cocktail, your bourbon cocktail, brandy, and another brandy, a little more complicated. Yeah. And there's even this section suitable for a prohibition company. So I think it's basically highlighting literally hooch whiskey. You got your, I'm sure, your bathtub gin, that sort of thing. These are all drinks that you can get your hand on these ingredients. And also, I think with the coloring and the addition of juice, they wouldn't look like cocktails. It's very important. So even though we have general cocktails all throughout the first 100 or so pages of this book, then we get into these different types of drinks. You have your sours. You have your base here, lemon, some sugar to sweeten it, and then your base spirit or liqueur. And then you would add soda water at this time and garnish with an orange and a cherry. A lot of classic formulations of cocktails specify adding soda water to lengthen it, and increasingly over time, that's not the case for how you would prepare a sour. You have your toddies, good for cold weather and when you're feeling unwell. And flips, these use an egg, a whole egg, I believe, and then I believe eggnog is generally meant to be more yolk oriented. Hopefully I don't have those flipped, but here they're using a whole egg. They're not separating out because it's just a bar. So what would you do with that egg white? I don't think we were quite at egg white in cocktails era. Tom Collins, which is a lengthened drink. Slings, I already have a video on the Singapore slang. And shrubs, if you remember, I think it was a year or two ago, everyone on the internet was obsessed with this idea of balsamic vinegar and some kind of fruit, or I think the original recipe just used like a LaCroix or something. And then everyone came out and was like, you're basically just making a shrub, which is a great way to get a little bit more life out of some fruits that might be going bad soon and you might not get time to work with them. I think a shrub is a great way to get another, to be more sustainable, really. Don't let your citrus and berries and stuff go bad. You can make a shrub. It's going to be very vinegary, but you lengthen it with soda water and it's actually really refreshing and I quite like it. Ooh, sangarees. These are all sherry based. You can tell it's like sherry port. It's after dinner kind of thing, and it's just a sweetened port wine or sherry, more or less. Your highballs, not to be confused with Collins, another lengthened drink. Fizzes. Collins highballs and fizzes have a lot of overlap, I think, but they are different. I believe highballs are generally these days very specific. It's just ice, alcohol, soda water, maybe ginger ale. And fizzes can be, I think we've expanded the idea of a fizz over time, but generally you're adding much less soda water towards the end here, whereas a highball is really thinning out your drink. Lots of fizzes. Fizzes were a big deal. So many fizzes. Coolers. Yeah, I'm sure cactus cooler might come to mind, but yeah, these are also kind of longer, sweeter drinks. Very, it's for summertime. It's pretty self-explanatory. A Ricky. Do we have bucks in here as well? I think this section is very useful, but I would have put some of these in a different order because I feel like if there's a buck, it should be next to the Rickies. But probably the most famous Ricky will be a gin Ricky, and that's really, you're going with lime here. It's going to be lime and soda. I think actually Ricky's can be lime or lemon, and it's a buck that is more specifically a lime. Like, I think a Batanga is technically a buck. Watch, I'm gonna be editing this and just cringing at how mixed up I'm getting all of my cocktail types. Daisy, I have a gin daisy here. This is, think of a margarita. A margarita is a daisy. Now, fixes I'm actually less familiar with. But yeah, it seems like, oh, because it's next to the juleps, so this is another summery drink involving a lot of kind of crushed or shaved ice. Okay, I'm familiar with what these are. Yeah, so you have these where you're going to have very fine or crushed ice, and then you have juleps, which are generally going to be more of a pebbled ice nowadays. They can also be shaved ice. And these are obviously a huge deal in the South, great in the summer. If you're looking into any American bartenders, mixologists back in the day, find out if they made a great mint julep, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. Because people are obsessed with them, and if they were good at mint julep, that'll be written down in history. That was the drink. The mint julep was the margarita of pre-prohibition times, especially. Smashes julep on a small plan. You can see why over time we've gotten less specific and kind of lumped in more cocktail types together. Cobbler's also under the julep umbrella. And then you have a frappe, which is really just, you're just kind of shaking for a long time to get it really cold and diluted. You see this kind of leave cocktail culture as much and then go into the coffee boom, obviously. It becomes a bigger thing in Europe and then spreads around the world. And then punches need no real explanation. Big batch cocktail, often wine or rum based. You have a milk punch. Don't knock it till you try it. You can bottle your punches. It's important to have directions for that, especially back in these days. Make sure everyone is being clean and knows how long it'll last based on the ingredients therein. So yes, we have a pretty good reference page here in the back, reference pages about wines, and this is written by Colette, which who knows who that would be. When Harry Craddock worked at the Savoy, there were two female bartenders working with him, Ava Coleman and Ada. So sorry. Ada Coleman and all I can remember is a nickname, I believe is Mrs. B or Lady B. So I would imagine that one of them wrote this, but it starts off with I was very well brought up. So I'm not sure. That might be Ada, honestly, because it was unusual that she got into bartending. She didn't have to. We love a map. The wines of Bordeaux. The world of wine used to be so small. Like, this was basically it. It was Western Europe, and other people made wine, of course, but the French supremacy really had the world in a chokehold. I'm very happy with the state of New World wines right now. I like that it's not simply labeled. It's just so you know, this is the river Dordogne. I like that it's not simply labeling things. It's this is the river Dordogne, the river Garonne. I don't know, make maps whimsical again, genuinely. Got your claret wine, and then the different chateaus, so you can be knowledgeable at your dinner parties and such. Yes, and what's a good vintage, what's a bad vintage. Basically like a very brief wine spectator of 1930. Yeah. So yeah, there's honestly it is never lost on me that one of the most kind of well recognized cocktail books in the world and history is also a very useful and helpful historical artifact for 19th century and early 20th century French wine and champagne, which is wine. Yes, going by region. So we had Bordeaux, Champagne. Yeah, we've had a nice little tour through all of these wine regions, winemaking regions, and get a nice little breakdown of the wine. Oh, leaving France finally. Get a little bit of Rhineland. And get a bit of Rhineland. Get your Rhine wines, your Stein wine, and your Rhine wines. Say that 3 times fast. Nice little section on port, sherry, of course, and then, yes, here we go, end of the wines, concluding remarks about special occasions. I do quite like these recipes at the end. I'm not sure why they're all by their lonesome. My theory is they're either some of the staff's favorite cocktails or maybe certain patrons. You have the Jersey Lightning here using Calvados, which is apple brandy, but in America, where it would be called Jersey Lightning, obviously, is Applejack. I think I'll do an episode on that, on Applejack and Jersey Lightning. I'll do something on that. Of course, some blank pages for your own mixology experiments. I don't have any written in here because I have a deep aversion to writing in books. But Harry Craddock said it was okay, so maybe I'll put a few in here. But yeah. That's that. Thanks for spending some time with me and going through this iconic book. If you're still awake, you can find a link to this in the description. And I hope you have a wonderful night.